I was actually walking through a grocery store parking lot the other day,
Oh, yeah.
just scanning bumper stickers while I dodged the shopping carts. And it just hit me
What hit you?
that you can draft an entire psychological profile of a total stranger just by looking at the back of their Honda Civic.
Oh, it is incredibly efficient, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, you know who they voted for, where they go to church, what kind of dog they have.
And probably exactly who they are currently angry at.
Exactly.
It's brand loyalty taken to the absolute extreme. We wear our tribes on our bumpers, on our T-shirts, right in our bio lines on social media.
Yeah, we really do.
And we tend to think this is a symptom of our time.
Mm.
The algorithm, the polarization of the 2020s, the
Right.
constant need to signal exactly where we stand.
Which is such a modern assumption.
It is. But today, we're going to bust that myth wide open.
Yeah.
Because for this deep dive, we have a stack of sources that proves this exact same drama.
The tribalism.
Right, the tribalism, the slogans, the whole
Mhm.
I'm with him mentality. It was tearing people apart 2,000 years ago.
And the setting for this isn't a parking lot or a Twitter thread,
No, it's the church.
specifically the ancient church in the city of Corinth.
So today we are diving into some really provocative material. We are looking at excerpts from a book called One Cross Above All Slogans, focusing on Scripture, from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 10 through 18.
And we're pairing that with a sermon by Phillip Gibson.
Yes. And the mission for us today is pretty clear. We want to figure out why human beings are so obsessed with fracturing into these little fan clubs.
And how this ancient text claims to have the only radical solution to actually stop it.
Right.
But fair warning to the listener here, this isn't just about dusty ancient history.
No, not at all.
Gibson's analysis takes these ancient principles and just drops them right into the political and cultural landscape of 2025 and 2026.
I think a little
It
uncomfortable.
gets very uncomfortable.
But before we get to the modern controversy, we really have to set the stage. So we are in Corinth, 1st century.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I have always pictured Corinth as this sort of sleepy, holy city.
Oh, like lots of white marble and quiet contemplation.
Exactly. Just
Yeah.
people walking around in robes, pondering things. But the sources paint a completely different picture.
Oh, it was definitely not sleepy. You have to think New York City meets Las Vegas.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it was a major port, a massive hub of global commerce, and a huge melting pot of competing philosophies.
So a ton of foot traffic.
Constant. You had sailors, merchants, philosophers, slaves, all just mixed together in this one place.
And the church there reflected that chaos perfectly.
It did. It really did.
So the people in this church, they hadn't stopped believing in Jesus' plot. Like, this wasn't an atheism problem.
No, they were passionate, hyper passionate, actually.
Okay.
The problem wasn't a lack of belief. It was misplaced belief. They had essentially taken the gospel and filtered it through the celebrity culture of the Roman world.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the ancient influencers.
Yes.
So Paul, the guy who actually started the church, he gets a report about what's going on.
Right.
And it is not a formal letter from the board of directors. The text says it's from Chloe's people.
Which is such a fascinating historical detail in itself.
Who is Chloe?
Well, Chloe was likely a wealthy businesswoman, and her people were probably servants or family members who were traveling back and forth between Corinth and Ephesus for trade.
Okay. So this wasn't an official report at all.
No, this was the ancient equivalent of a DM from a concerned insider.
Just saying, hey, it is a mess down here.
Exactly.
And the specific complaint is that everyone is choosing a favorite leader.
Right.
It's not one unified church anymore. It is a collection of fan clubs.
Yes, so you had the Paul faction.
Okay, let's break these down.
Yeah.
The Paul faction, these are probably the loyalists, right?
Exactly. Paul founded the community. He is the spiritual father. So the people who really valued loyalty and history, they stuck with Paul.
Makes sense. Then you have the Apollos faction. Now, from what I read in the background materials, Apollos was sort of the polished one.
He was. Apollos was from Alexandria, which was the intellectual capital of the world at the time.
Okay.
So he was highly educated, very rhetorical, very eloquent.
So if Paul was kind of the gritty startup founder who rambled a bit.
Apollos was the polished TED Talk speaker.
Right.
The intellectuals in Corinth absolutely loved him because he made Christianity sound sophisticated and philosophical.
And then there's the Cephas faction.
Yeah.
Cephas being the Aramaic name for Peter.
Right, the Jewish traditionalists.
Yeah.
Because Peter was one of the original 12 disciples.
He walked on water. You went
Yeah.
with Jesus.
Exactly. If you cared about credentials and lineage and tradition,
Yeah.
you went with Peter. He was the original.
The OG.
Yes, the
So you had the traditionalists, the intellectuals, and the loyalists. But then Paul mentions a fourth group.
Yes.
And honestly, reading the text, this group sounds like they actually have it right. Because they say, I belong to Christ.
I know. On the surface, that sounds like the correct answer on a Sunday school test.
Right. Like, obviously, you belong to Christ.
But Gibson points out something crucial here in his sermon. Paul lists them right alongside the others as part of the problem.
Why, though? How can saying, I follow Jesus be a problem?
Because of the tone.
The tone.
Yeah, in this specific context, they aren't saying it humbly to include everyone else. They are saying it exclusively.
Oh.
It's the super spiritual faction. They are the ones walking around saying, oh, you guys follow Paul or Peter, that's cute. We don't need human teachers. We only take orders from God directly.
Oh, wow. So they are weaponizing Jesus?
Precisely. They are using his name to bypass any accountability to the actual community.
It's the ultimate trump card.
It really is. Saying I belong to Christ in this specific context really means I am better than you.
It's spiritual arrogance masquerading as piety.
Exactly. It's using Jesus as a slogan to shut down conversation rather than open it up.
That is a very subtle but dangerous distinction. So Paul hears all this right. I'm with Paul. I'm with Apollos. And he just absolutely loses it.
He does. He goes into what rhetoricians call a reductio ad absurdum.
Okay.
He asks them, has Christ been divided? Was Paul crucified for you?
He's trying to shock them.
He's trying to show them that they are treating the church like a consumer product. They're basically shopping for the brand of spirituality that fits their own self-image.
And Paul basically says, I thank God that I baptized almost none of you.
Which is such a wild thing for a pastor to say.
Right. Usually you want to report massive growth. Look how many people I baptized.
I know, but he is terrified that people would think they were baptized into the cult of Paul.
He lists a few names, right? Crispus Gaius, the household of Stephanas.
Yeah, but he is visibly relieved that the list is short.
He wants to make it crystal clear.
Yes. The messenger is nothing. The cross is everything.
Okay, so that is the ancient dynamic. Humans want a hero. We want a tribe. We want to be on the smart team with Apollos or the OG team with Peter.
Right.
Now let's jump in the time machine. Because Gibson's sermon takes this exact dynamic.
A fracturing around slogans.
Right. And he applies it directly to 2025 and 2026.
And this is where we need to tread carefully, but honestly.
Yeah, let's put a disclaimer out there for you listening right now.
Definitely. The source material lists very specific slogans that have become popular in Christian or adjacent spaces over the last few years.
Right.
And we are not here to debate the politics of these slogans. We are entirely neutral on that front.
We are not taking sides, left wing or right wing. We are simply reporting on the theological tension that the source material points out.
Exactly. We are looking at how these slogans flatten the gospel, as Gibson puts it.
Okay, so let's start with the big one. You see this on shirts, hats, flags everywhere. God, guns, and country.
It's a classic triad. It flows off the tongue perfectly.
It does, but the source argues that this is a theological nightmare.
Yes.
How so?
It's about association and hierarchy. When you put those three words together with commas, you are effectively elevating guns and country to the exact same tier as God.
You're putting them on the same level.
Right. You are suggesting they are mutually reinforcing, that to serve one is to serve the others.
But the source contrasts this directly with the actual life of Jesus.
Right. Because Jesus wasn't a nationalist. And he certainly wasn't pro-violence.
The source points to the Garden of Gethsemane, right?
Yes. When Peter tries to defend Jesus with a sword, which is literally God and guns in action right there,
Right.
Jesus shuts it down immediately. He says, put your sword back in its place.
So Gibson's argument is that the slogan implies a warrior Jesus who defends the nation with force.
Exactly. While the text actually gives us a suffering servant who dies for the world.
That creates a massive cognitive dissonance.
It does. You are worshiping the Prince of Peace with a slogan that explicitly celebrates lethal force.
It frames the faith as something that needs to be defended by power rather than something embodied through sacrifice. Okay, let's move to another one. Protect our own first.
This one is tough.
It is, because it feels so visceral. It feels like basic common sense. I take care of my family before I take care of yours.
Sure.
So why does the source flag this as anti-gospel?
Because common sense is often the exact opposite of kingdom ethics.
Okay.
The source points directly to the parable of the Good Samaritan to explain this.
Which is a story we have all heard a million times.
Right.
A guy gets beat up on the road, Religious people walk right past him, and then a Samaritan finally stops and helps him.
We've all heard it, but we often miss the actual punchline of the story.
Which is what?
The Samaritan was the literal enemy of the Jewish man who was beaten in the ditch.
Oh.
Yeah. If the slogan, protect our own first, was actually biblical, then the priest and the Levite who walked past the dying man, they were the heroes of the story.
Yeah, that completely flips it.
Right. Because they were protecting their own safety and their own ceremonial purity. They were literally putting their own first.
So the Samaritan blew up the entire concept of our own.
Yes. Jesus redefines neighbor to mean essentially everyone, including the very people we are most afraid of.
So limiting your compassion to your specific tribe or your nationality, that might be a natural human instinct.
But the source argues it is distinctly not Christian.
Okay, here is one that gets thrown around in the culture wars constantly. Love the sinner, fight the culture.
Now this one is tricky.
Because it sounds so balanced, right? It sounds like you are genuinely trying to be loving.
It does. But Gibson argues that in practice, the emphasis almost always falls on the fight part.
It becomes licensed to be hostile to people, as long as you claim you love them abstractly.
Exactly. It's like saying, I love you, that's why I'm shouting at you.
Right.
The source notes that Jesus didn't wage culture wars.
He didn't.
No. He didn't try to seize control of the Roman Senate or the Sanhedrin to force top-down cultural change.
He focused on costly grace.
Yes. Forming people through relationship, through sacrifice and service. When you adopt a warfare mentality, love just becomes a tactic. It's not a posture anymore.
And if love is secondary, you've entirely lost the plot.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about truth. There are two slogans here that seem really closely related in the source. Faith over facts, and truth matters more than love.
Let's take faith over facts first.
Okay.
The source argues this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what the word faith actually means.
How so?
Well, the slogan suggests that faith is the denial of reality.
Like closing your eyes and plugging your ears.
Right. That if the medical data or the historical evidence says one thing, then having faith means forcing yourself to believe the exact opposite.
But biblical faith isn't that.
No, that is willful ignorance. Biblical faith is trusting God within reality.
Okay.
It's looking at the facts, like Abraham looking at the fact of his old age and trusting God's promise despite those facts, not pretending his age wasn't a real fact.
I see. So the source is arguing that when Christians ignore hard evidence, whether it's scientific or historical, and they claim it's just faith?
They aren't actually being faithful, they are being Gnostic. They are rejecting the physical world that God actually made.
And what about truth matters more than love? That one feels like a false dichotomy to me. Like, do I really have to pick one over the other?
The source literally calls it a false choice.
Okay.
In the Christian framework, Jesus is truth and Jesus is love. You simply cannot have one without the other.
So truth without loves is what?
It's just brutality. It's using facts as a weapon to bludgeon someone.
And love without truth.
It's just pure sentimentality. It's nice, but it doesn't heal anything. You have to have both.
And usually the people screaming that truth matters more than love are just using it as an excuse to be a jerk.
Pretty much, yes. That seems to be the subtext.
There is one more here regarding the actual character of Jesus. The slogan is, Jesus was tough, not weak.
Ah, the hyper-masculine Jesus.
Right. It feels like a direct reaction against the gentle, meek, and mild imagery we grew up with.
It is. But the source warns that this completely reframes Jesus as a figure of domination.
I mean, he was strong, right? He flipped tables in the temple. He stood up to corrupt authorities.
He definitely did. But his ultimate act of strength was the cross.
Right.
And to the world, the cross looks like total weakness. It looks like losing. It looks like absolute failure.
So the source is arguing that if your definition of toughness doesn't include washing feet and forgiving executioners,
and literally dying for your enemies,
yeah,
then you aren't talking about Jesus anymore. You are talking about John Wayne.
Wow. And finally, the last slogan, God is on our side.
The ultimate tribal claim.
Right.
The source actually references Abraham Lincoln here alongside biblical prophecy.
Okay.
The core message is that God is not a mascot for your political party or your nation.
God doesn't wear a jersey.
No. The question is never, is God on our side? The question we have to ask is, are we on God's side?
Are we aligning ourselves with justice and mercy and humility? So if we step back and look at this whole list, guns, culture wars, our side, my tribe, Gibson is saying these are just the modern versions of I follow Paul or I follow Apollos.
That is exactly what they are. They are identity markers. We use them to signal to everyone else who is in and who is out.
And just like back in Corinth, they're dividing the body of Christ.
Yes, they are.
So what is the actual solution here? Because Paul doesn't just write a letter to complain, right? He offers a fix.
He does.
But the fix isn't okay. Everyone just needs to agree on every single policy.
No, and thank goodness for that.
Right.
Paul isn't asking for uniformity. He is asking for unity.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two fundamentally different things.
Break that down for us. What is the actual difference between uniformity and unity?
Uniformity means we all look the exact same, we talk the same, we vote the same, and we all have the exact same bumper stickers on our cars.
Which sounds a lot like a cult.
It is a cult. Unity, on the other hand, means we are different. We have completely different backgrounds, different opinions, different politics, but we are held together by something much stronger than our differences.
And for Paul, and later for theologians like John Wesley, that something is the cross.
Yes.
Paul calls the message of the cross foolishness in verse 18. He says the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing.
Right.
Why foolishness? Why use that specific word?
Because it makes absolutely no sense to the power structures of the world.
Okay.
Think about Corinth, or think about Wall Street or Washington, D.C. today. What do we naturally value as humans?
Winning, status.
Leverage, crushing the opposition, being right.
And the cross is God dying.
It's God losing. It's God completely surrendering power.
To a Roman citizen that is not a god.
Yeah.
That's a criminal.
Exactly. And to a modern winner, quote unquote, that is just weakness.
But Paul says this foolishness is actually the power of God because it destroys the human ego.
Yes. It is really hard to be arrogant when your God is dying on a cross.
That is profound.
You can't stand at the foot of the cross and brag about your political party. You can't stand there and say, hey, look at me, I'm with the smart group.
The cross levels the entire playing field.
It does. We are all equally in need of grace. And that is the only real foundation for unity.
If we try to build unity purely on agreement, we will fail every time.
But if we build it on the cross, we actually have a chance.
Now, there's a really fascinating practical application of all this in the source material.
Yes.
It moves from this very high theology straight into church administration.
Which sounds boring, but it is brilliant.
We are talking about the Methodist practice of itinerancy.
Yes. This is where the rubber really meets the road.
So itinerancy is the system where pastors are intentionally moved from church to church every few years.
Right.
And I have friends who grew up Methodist and they absolutely hated this.
Oh, I bet.
You finally get a pastor, like the youth group is booming, the sermons are great, and then boom, the bishop just moves them to another town.
It feels incredibly inefficient.
It feels disruptive.
It feels terrible. We crave stability as humans. But the source argues that this entire system was designed specifically to prevent the Corinthian problem.
How does forcing the pastor to move stop factionalism?
Because it forces the congregation to realize that the church does not belong to the pastor.
Oh.
If a charismatic pastor stays at one church for 30 years, it inevitably becomes Jim's church or Susan's church.
The personality becomes the glue holding the whole thing together.
Exactly. It naturally becomes a cult of personality. I follow Paul. I follow Apollos.
Wow. So by rotating the leadership, the system is effectively saying, no preacher was crucified for you.
Exactly. It visually reminds the people every few years that their loyalty has to be to the gospel and to the local community, not to the charisma of just one leader.
It essentially breaks the fan club mentality by force.
Yes.
That is incredibly countercultural, especially today.
Oh, absolutely. We live in the age of the celebrity CEO, the celebrity pastor, the social media influencer.
We deeply want to follow a person.
We do. And it feels uncomfortable to have that relationship intentionally disrupted.
But the source argues that this discomfort is necessary.
It is a safeguard against idolatry. It keeps the main thing the main thing.
That is a heavy lesson. It's basically saying, don't get too comfortable.
Because comfort is rarely the goal of the gospel.
Maturity is the goal.
Yes.
And that brings us right to the conclusion of the source material. It feels like Paul is ultimately telling the Corinthians, and by extension, telling us to just grow up.
He really is. He is saying that clinging to these slogans, needing to always be on the winning team, needing a celebrity leader to follow.
That is spiritual infancy.
It's childish.
So spiritual maturity is what exactly? Loosening the grip.
It's loosening your grip on your need to be right.
Okay.
It's realizing that your identity is not Republican or Democrat or Calvinist or progressive.
It's realizing that all those labels are just dust compared to the identity of being in Christ.
Exactly. It's really about where you find your us
That is the core question, isn't it?
It is. Is your us defined by who you hate? Or is your us defined by who God loves?
The source leaves us with a really provocative challenge at the end, and I want to leave you, the listener, with this too.
It's a great exercise.
It asks us to look in the mirror and do a mental stripping away process.
Right.
If you stripped away your political slogans, if you took the bumper sticker off the car,
If you unfollowed your favorite influencers.
right, if you peeled off every single cultural label you use to describe yourself to a stranger,
Would you still know who you are?
it is a terrifying question for a lot of us.
Because we prop ourselves up with all these external things.
We do. But the source suggests that true identity, the kind that absolutely cannot be shaken, is found only when all those other things fall away.
Finding that we belong to one another by grace, not by agreement.
That is the kingdom.
Yes.
A heavy but truly hopeful thought to end on. We would love for you to take a moment today, maybe on your commute or while you're making dinner, and just think about your own allegiances.
Where does your security really come from?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a great one.
We will catch you on the next one.